Hello, we're back again. And this time we're talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is fraud. Piyush, we spent a long time talking about fraud.
I used to, and then it's sort of the topic itself became quite a it became like a weird circle because I remember the days, good old days, Adam, when CTR used to be 3%, 4%, 5%, and we used to say anything above 10% is a fraud, and now we are in a world where it's 99% CTR and we don't even know what reality is anymore. So yeah, good to be back on such a sad note. Happy to sort of invite. Yeah, sorry.
Wow, bring the mood down, why not?
That's one way. You said one of your favorite topics is fraud. That's an oxymoron in itself. But
I mean,
anyway,
you said to me just before this, right? You said to me, like, what is the state of fraud right now? Because, like, I've not heard much about it over the past little while. So, and I think my reaction was, completed it.
yeah, no,
But
for sure. And I'm very interested in seeing this because honestly, I feel, and I don't know, Yael, would you agree or not? But the topic has sort of gone cold for a while. I'm really happy to see this topic come back in and sort of understand what exactly is going on in this space.
Well, I was going to say that's why we have brought AppsFlyer's fraud expert into the fold here so that we can have a nice conversation about the State of Fraud for Marketers report that AppsFlyer's just released recently. Yael, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, and nice to see you again. So, my name is Yael Altshul, and I'm the director of Protect 360, which is basically the fraud prevention and detection product at AppsFlyer. And I've been in the industry for the last 8.5 years in different products. And Protect and fraud in general is one of the most interesting parts I've been dealing in the last years.
I'd agree with that. It's fun, isn't it? Like, I mean, it's you're looking at grey areas. You're looking at things that people can do that are, potential exploits, that kind of thing of the system as it is. I don't know. I've always found it really exciting. So,
It's like a
um,
hide and seek game, but in
yeah,
reality. So
yeah. It's the kind of thing you want to go and hire a load of fraudsters who are doing very good stuff at the moment and bring them in to sort of to be
Hire a load
able
of
to find
fraudsters.
the things that work.
Did you hear yourself? Hire a load of fraudsters.
I mean,
Um,
you don't need today to hire a lot of fraudsters. You just need to have a really good AI tool. So
we'll get into
and
that.
I
We'll,
also want
we'll
to
get
get into
into
that.
that.
Yeah, yeah, really. But anyway, we can start,
Anyway,
Adam.
let's take a look at the headlines that we found or that you guys have found with this. Um, so, 52% of all fraud flows through organic, making it the largest single fraud channel. Now, there's always been a massive thing of it's organic. I don't care. Like, I'm not paying for that. But that's you're we had this conversation before, and you're now telling me that I should care about this. Why?
I think that before we will even drill into the metrics here, I think that the headline for this year report is that in general, fraud didn't just simply rise or fall; it basically moved. And the question is where it moved and why it moved. And organic is really one interesting point here because in the past, people tend to think that they should not care about organic fraud. First of all, they are not paying for that, right?
Yeah.
And second of all is that it was look kind of safe era because it was under supervised, and the 52% is quite a big number. And if there is fraud somewhere, that means that there is an incentive, right? Um,
Well, I
and
mean,
the
there's always been an incentive as the user acquisition budgets growed over time, or grew over time. Growed is a bit of a bad terminology, but as they grew over time, they taking a percentage of that, however small that percentage is a lot of money.
it's a lot of money, and sometimes when you're looking at the fraud rate, sometimes it looks flat, but either way, when the growth of the company become bigger, so those flat percentage really represent more and more budget waste, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And organic fraud, the issue about that is that paid fraud really hurts your channel, but organic fraud hurts your internal truth of your measurement, and it basically pollutes the entire baseline for everything, for measurement, for optimization, for optimizing the next bid. Um, so organic in the past looked like something that should not be considered, but today it is one of the most important things that you should look at.
But are we saying that fraudsters are actually that strategic in the approach to it, that they're going to muddy the waters on purpose of the organic traffic to make the campaigns that they're going to send fraud through in the future to look better?
I will give you one example. Fraudsters, for example, using organic in order to wash new devices because it's less supervised. So if you will see a paid campaign that all of the devices are new, so you will suspect, right? But if during the time before they will enter more and more new devices through organic, basically they will wash that and you will not notice later on that fraud is being performed in the non-organic path.
So MMPs would then have already seen that device and know that it's a real or potentially a real device because it has organic installs associated with. Wow, that's cool. Sorry, Piyush.
And no, I was just asking, what's from an advertiser perspective, what's the revenue impact that you can assess with it? Because look, I understand one part of it, which is if organics are obviously inflated, then obviously you tend to spend more budget on the UA side to sort of, reach to a particular number. Your retention rates are actually lower than what it ideally should be because there's fraud, related with organics and stuff like that. But where exactly is the revenue side of it? What are the fraudsters benefiting? How are they benefiting from this?
So they are using organic fraud in order later on to get paid from the non-organic path. So they are like building the strategy through it. It can be the new devices. It can be playing and tricking the CVR rates and everything around that. And sometimes it's just unattributed fraud, which means that they try to get attribution. But for example, the click was too far from the lookback window. So they
and it just hasn't worked.
Yeah, it just didn't work. But it's a long-term strategy. Fraud is not that simple like in the past, where you were looking just in this point, how can I get the money in? It's a long-term strategy, and organic fraud is part of this strategy.
Got it. Okay.
It's nuts to view it as like a strategic approach rather than just a hack and grab kind of thing. That's really interesting. Hadn't thought of it that way, especially washing the devices. That's nuts. Okay, let's jump on to the next one. Gambling fraud on Android hit 59%. It's the only vertical that's still accelerating, and presumably that's down to some of the ad sources that they're working with.
Basically, when looking at why there is fraud, we can look at different dimensions. We can look at their media mix, if they are working with non-direct, with affiliation, and so on. We can look at the cost model. We can look at the payout, and we can look at the incentive. So all of those dimensions and some more really affect how much fraud you will have. And gambling is the clearest example because the incentive is high. We are talking about real money, high payout, media mix that also involve, non-direct media sources. So this is a clear example where you have high incentives, so you will have more fraud.
So yeah, just do you remember any of an example at the top of your head, like without naming the advertiser in this case, that you actually saw when you informed the advertisers they were actually able to do something about it? Block that media source or something like that?
So this is a really good question because
he's trying to get the money back already.
I will later on tell you how to do that. But generally speaking, it's easy to say, okay, just don't work with those affiliate, work just direct, work just with SRS, and you will be free of fraud, right? But in the end, marketers want to grow and they will expand their media mix. And sometimes there are regulations, right? So it's not a matter of if to work with them or not, is how to work with them. When you're working with non-direct traffic, when you're going to more riskiest place, you need to have more enforcement. You need to create more transparency. And you can also have a lot of best practices. For example, one of them is to create kind of enforcement contract between you and the non-direct, sources that you are working with, and to monitor their performance and to enforce it if they are going beyond, the guidelines that you gave them. So it's not just to block and block and block, is how to work strategically with them in order to build a good growth strategy.
Got it. And there was one interesting bit that you've mentioned over here in the report itself, which is real users lift hit 175% in Q4. For every real user acquired, advertisers paid for nearly 2 fake ones.
Yeah.
Again, I'm assuming it's down to the vertical, right? It's in the gambling space.
Yes.
Yeah, I really, really like the real user lift. Actually, I was the one that added it to the report, so this is why I like it. But I think that first of all, what I like about real user lift is that this is a metric that look not just about the issue of fraud as a traffic issue. It's look at it as